George Kittle presents a bit of a unique challenge for you guys. What emphasis have you guys had on him? And then I know you probably can't talk so much about game plan, but in terms of protecting the middle of the field, what kinds of things have you guys been emphasizing this week?
Well, he aligns everywhere. I mean, they feature him as a single receiver. He aligns in the core. They move him around frequently on first and second down. So he's a moving target, and he has exceptional receiving skills. And so he'll be a tough matchup for us. We just have to be aware of where he is as it pertains to the part of their game plan where he's featured and just execute our scheme.
What is it about their offensive line that makes them so successful? Is it simply just their physical nature, or is it something scheme-wise?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think they take a lot of pride in executing that style of offense, and there's a lot of nuance to it, and they can play the zone game, which is a little bit more position-based, and then they can play the downhill gap scheme, old school power run game, if you will. And then they've done an exceptional job protecting the quarterback, which to me, that's all mentality and just will and want to. So regardless of what the positions that they're in or the type of concept that they want to feature, they're doing a pretty good job with it. We'll have our hands full.
As a coach that's worked with a lot of talent on the defensive line, when you look at their defensive line, does it kind of make you, that happy to see a strong defense like that and how successful they've been? Obviously not going against your team, but
I admire defense, not when we're getting ready to play them, but they've done a really good job, and clearly they've invested a lot in the front, which is don't tell the DBs, but that's where my heart is. I love our secondary. You can't rush without the coverage and vice versa. Part of the reason we've had the success we've had is those things have really worked together in sync. And but they've done a nice job in all aspects, rushing the quarterback and stopping the run, just being a physical presence. And so they have done a good job.
Coach, what has it been like to have Trey Boston as a leader in the secondary this season?
Well, when you what you count on is that vocal presence back there, that person that can communicate the adjustments, the alignments, the adjustments, and some of the relevant information when guys start moving in a hurry and decisively, so that we're all in sync back there. The one thing, Luke does an exceptional job communicating to our entire defense, but what you don't want Luke to have to do is to turn around and address the secondary. You want his eyes fixated on that front seven and what's happening in front of him. So it's a tremendous comfort for our overall operations efficiency, and for Luke to just be able to focus there, knowing that the back half is kind of taken care of, not only with Trey, but with a veteran like Eric Reed back there, who also provides that kind of leadership.
Trey's one of those kind of guys that is always talking, always laughing, having a good time.
Right.
Does that kind of positive energy, is that contagious within the secondary and just the defense as a whole?
There's no question. For our preparation, coming out with that energy and convincing yourself that it's, if you tell yourself that, hey, I'm determined to come out and have a great day, a great practice, it starts with your attitude. Coach Rivera talks about that every single morning. Attitude, preparation, and effort. He really personifies that. He brings a lot of energy. The guys feed off of that, and we have a saying in the defensive meeting room: we are the energy. That does not fall on one person, but we can always depend on Trey to give us an infusion of that kind of positive juice.
Eric, to go back to their running game, one thing that a couple of different guys said was that their misdirection has been really effective so far. How is that similar or dissimilar to some of the things that this offense does here? With Christian and with all the different moving parts, is it something that's unique to what they do, or are there different concepts that are similar that you see around the league?
Well, there are definitely some similarities. I think what makes this particular team unique is just the rate in which they incorporate that from one snap to the next. You know what I'm saying? There's a high frequency of pre-snap movement from everywhere, shifts, motion, a personal motion across and then return. So you have a lot of those things going on, and we see some of those things in practice. So our offense, actually, they have provided us a nice platform or foundation, if you will, to see those things, address them, and to take our various defensive concepts and to match those against that stuff so that we can work on that particular concept. And then they match it with a high tempo It's one thing when you have motion, but when you have basically a no huddle tempo and you're doing all of those things, that's challenging for a defense. We have to, because the enemy for us is not being set in a position where we can fire off and engage our assignment with maximum violence, intensity, and effort and compliance. So it presents some challenges.
Dante Jackson said something interesting about being able to watch sometimes what the front seven is doing from his perspective, specifically this year with the amount of versatility you guys have. He called it beautiful when things click into place and guys are filling each other's spots and moving in that way. I was wondering if you might have an example of a time where you thought that, or something, a similar adjective to that.
Well, without speaking for Dante, I think every time a play is completed before the quarterback has a chance to challenge our coverage and challenge a specific member of our coverage, I think every secondary member would say that's a beautiful snap. If the quarterback can't challenge them, and as he shouldn't, we take a lot of pride in keeping the quarterback to discourage him from challenging our secondary from a short route, intermediate, and especially deep. So I'm glad that he appreciates that. And we appreciate, like I mentioned earlier, we appreciate what they're doing, their role in that. I mean, we've gotten our hands on a lot of balls this year, as many as I've ever seen at this point. People are really excited about the sack reduction, but one thing is definitely a function of the other. I mean, when there's tight coverage, it gives the rush a couple of extra steps, and we've benefited from that.
How much of an opportunity did you have over the bye to evaluate both the good things that you guys have done so far as well as the things that you need to improve on? And can you sort of pinpoint some of those for us?
That's a major part of that particular week. You have a chance to kind of get off of the carousel of this opponent, the next opponent, and even anticipating some things down the line, and just stop for a second and look at yourself. And some of the grades were outstanding as far as the production in specific areas that pertain to winning. And there's some things that clearly we want to be better with, and we're working actively to improve. Obviously, the sack production has been tremendous, and the rush production. And the takeaways, our interceptions and overall takeaways, we feel really good about that. Our run defense needs to pick up. Yards per carry, total yards per game. Philosophically, we believe that if we stop the run, if we create negative plays, it gives us a chance to get off the field on third down. So those two areas, our third down defense, our red zone defense, we're working actively to improve those things over the next 5 or 6 weeks starting on Sunday. So that's exactly what we do during the offseason. And that starts with me just looking at everything and then providing feedback to the head coach and all of the position coaches. And then some of that we'll give to the players without looking back. But I just like to put things into perspective. And if we've done a great job getting our hands on a lot of balls, I want the guys to know that they've done that. They deserve to hear that information because they've earned that. But we can't dwell on that because the next opponent's coming. So that's exactly what we do during the offseason.
To improve some of that run defense, is that just a matter of being more disciplined in your gaps, or is there something else beyond that as well?
Well, it's predominantly, interesting when I looked at the explosive runs. They were all fundamental issues, and there wasn't, I wouldn't say there was a lack of discipline, but there was some technique issues, some fundamental things, some things that go right to the core of how you play your position from one down to the next with the call and the run concept, just how you engage your position that we can be cleaner with. And that's just a part of the process of improving and getting better, especially when you start talking about as many young players that we've played so far this season. You're going to have some of those growing pains.
Coach, how does adding a new threat in the middle of the week, like the 49ers did with Emmanuel Sanders, how does that affect your game planning?
It really doesn't. He's a fantastic player, an explosive receiver, a guy that's been highly productive for a long time. I'm aware of, I've looked at him. I'm aware of what he can do and how I believe he fits into their overall scheme. I think that it's the kind of he really fits what they like to do. There were some things in Denver that were very similar to what the 49ers are doing relative to the passing game. And so we'll prepare for their overall scheme, and we will be aware of his explosive potential and the kind of player that he is when he gets the ball in his hands.
Do you feel like when Dante was out, the opposing quarterback was targeting Ross a little bit more, and obviously he lived up to that challenge? Can you, when you're a backup and you go in there and you're kind of thrown under the gun, how much additional pressure is it in addition to just going out and playing on a daily basis?
Well, I wouldn't exactly, Josh, call Ross a backup. We have a mentality that we prepare future starters, and so the way we coach every player, regardless of whether they go out there first or whatever, that's kind of the mentality. It's hard to say if his side of the field or his area of responsibility was being targeted. JB, James Bradbury, had several opportunities to make plays on the ball and to intercept passes, and he did a nice job. So it's hard to say as far as that goes. I just know that Ross, we felt exceptionally confident that if he went in the football game, that we would get our money's worth from him. And it's unfortunate that he missed last season. We felt like that last year. But that's just what he's been able to do for us. And depth is so important in the NFL.
With all three of those guys healthy, assumedly going into this game, is this kind of what you had pictured when you brought Ross in, as having those three as kind of available to do what they like in the secondary?
There's no question about it. To have three, you want as many good players in the secondary as you can get, but to have three guys, that's not excluding the other positions, but to have three guys that are proven, that you feel great about from a matchup standpoint, that understand situations and understand how to fit runs and will step up and execute our different coverage concepts, is a great feeling. And for Ross, being able to play, he's played the bolt position, Buffalo. He's played corner. He's done so many things, and it's been a seamless transition. That's a tremendous credit to his work and preparation and his attitude.